Mr. Frank Gaffney, Center for Security Policy, you're trying to save the world. And I just said to you, you have so many things in your brain that you're trying to let people know about, and no one will listen. I can't imagine. It's like having the secret to life. And they say, well, what's the secret to life? And you tell them, and they're not listening. Why?
Well, I would quibble a little bit with the characterization. I think we're really concentrating on saving our part of the world. That's the first order of business. I've got a lot of stuff in my brain that really bears on that job, and I'm happy to share it with people, particularly through you all. And I think people are listening. Not as many as we need, and not as much of the time as we need, and most especially not with as much effect as we need if we're to save the country. But I think particularly the insights into what is happening to our country as a result of a kind of post-American mindset in our government that has many different manifestations, but one that's particularly worrying is the idea that it's okay that our country and our constitution and our form of government and even our way of life is mutated by way of accommodation to people who seek to impose something they call Sharia on the rest of us. Islamists, specifically the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's the piece that I think is putting our country in considerable jeopardy, particularly because it's a kind of stealthy form of jihad against us. And it's also something that we need real help with. So the more people know and the more they get engaged, the better we are going to be.
I know Morgan has questions.
Pass the baton.
I have a question. We were talking earlier about the fact that many of our elected officials just maybe aren't aware of what's going on. I know that sounds crazy, but maybe they have other things on their plate, or maybe they're just not aware of how really intrusive this is becoming. How do we make them aware? How do we get their attention and really tell them how concerned we as Americans are?
Well, I think there are a couple of different ways this can be done, and probably we need all of them to be done. I think there's partly briefings and hearings and other official acts that they can obtain this information from. The problem with that, in part, is if the rest of the government, including our intelligence services, don't have a very good grip on this, then they may not get the information as directly and as clearly as they need. Another way...
They tried to do that. They did have an investigation. Michelle Bachmann was ridiculed by John McCain, by people on our side, and only five people in Congress stood up. How do we get through? How are we supposed to get through if no one will listen?
Yeah. In that particular case, as you know, back in June of last year, as you said, Michelle Bachmann, Congressman Louis Gohmert, Trent Franks, Lynn Westmoreland, and Tom Rooney wrote a letter, actually 5 different letters, to 5 different inspectors general in the various agencies that have some relevance to this. The Defense Department, the State Department, the Justice Department, the Homeland Security Department, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. They did not get what I consider to be even a civil answer back from any of them, let alone a responsive answer, asking specifically for an investigation of the extent to which named individuals in those letters who have demonstrable ties to that organization I mentioned, the Muslim Brotherhood, are having an impact on policies which these letters also identified that are clearly bringing our government's agenda or policies into alignment with the agenda and policies of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's very worrying, and the fact that they didn't get much of a response or anything, certainly in the way of an investigation, should be worrying to everybody. But just to finish your question, my feeling is that doing things through official channels is one way to get people smart about this. If it's not going to be terribly productive, another way, which can actually be quite impactful, is for their constituents to begin to be smart about these things. And then when they come to you and ask for your vote, let's say, or they come to you and have a town hall meeting, or perhaps they just have a district office that you want to go and visit in the state or in Washington. Those are ways to communicate your concerns about this problem, and that, I believe, perhaps not as quickly as we would like, but that can help really get people thinking about and doing something about this problem.
Do you think that there's a way, you know how everybody now, the Democrats and everybody is onto this, women's issues, and that's a big deal, and they're the party of women. Do you think if women in our audience and women in America make some noise about what's going on and the treatment of women by the Muslim Brotherhood and that culture, do you think that might make a difference if women banded together and really made their voices heard for this?
Look, there's no question about it. In fact, we pushed an alternative narrative when the Obama administration, in the course of the campaign last year, was endlessly pronouncing this war on women.
Exactly.
Well, the real war on women is Sharia.
Exactly.
And I can't think of another single most important, at least, action that could be taken than to get women who have so much at stake in this fight engaged and demanding corrective action. So this is really a vitally important effort, and we're trying to work on it. I was just talking with a gal from Dallas, Texas, Alice Linehan, who is trying to get women on the wall, as she calls it, to serve to counter this threat. And I think Eagle Forum and Act for America, Brigitte Gabriel, and so on are all in their ways trying, but your audience and people like them will have an appreciation if they just get to know a little bit about this problem, of how much they personally have on the line, how much their children, their girls particularly, have on the line, and what they can help do about it. If I may commend one useful tool for this, we've done a course, an online, free, 10-part video course called Muslim Brotherhood in America.
Yes.
Well,
Brilliant.
part 10 of the course, which I encourage you to get to after you've gone through the rest of it, because you sort of need to know what you're talking about before you get to part 10, which talks all about what you can do to try to make a difference, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're of one faith or another,
Right.
even if you're Muslim, what you can do to try to ensure that our country is not destroyed from within, as the Muslim Brotherhood says explicitly is their purpose.